has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and
a very good morning to you wherever you are. Thanks for choosing us as Pan-African Television. We are live with the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live on several affiliate radio stations, but we are live on radio, on Radio Gold. But we are also live on various social media platforms. Pan-African Television on Facebook, Pan-African TV on YouTube. If you're using any of those to watch us, please share your comments with us, because that's where I'll be reading comments from as we go along in the program. My name is Sena Nombo. Once again, it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's show. Today, we are talking about National Cathedral, because this week, the man in charge of the construction has revealed that the program has stalled because of a lack of finances. Now, he said the money needs to come in, but they're not coming in the sizes and the amount that they are expecting. It's not big enough. They need to see big money to be able to do some significant work on the National Cathedral. Well, the Auditor General says we spent over 140 million on the National Cathedral alone. We'll talk about that in our very first discussion, and then we'll move on to the relative stability of the cedi. The cedi took some beating over the past few weeks, but it seems to be stabilizing after we got the 750 or 715 million, depends on who you are listening to, or 730 million, depends on who you are listening to, into the country from Afreximbank. Question is, would it be the salvation of the cedi? That'll be our second discussion. And then we'll go to Europe, because Russia has turned off the gas pipelines. What happened? The G7 went into a meeting and decided to cap the price at which they pay for Russian gas. The Nord Stream 1 pipeline has since been off. Gazprom, which is running the pipeline, says it has some defects on the pipeline. That's why it has to close it and fix the defect before they turn the pipes back on. Well, we'll talk about that and the whole geopolitical struggle between Russia and Europe, and of course with the US since the Russian-Ukraine war started. Thank you very much once again for joining us. Once again, be a part of the show. And joining me this morning for today's discussion, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, getting closer to me. We are privileged to have Dr. Dickson Adomako Kissi in the studio with us this morning. He's Member of Parliament for Anyaa, Sowutuom, and very close to me on my left is lawyer Beatrice Annan, joining us today. We'll be joined shortly by Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, who is Member of Parliament for North Tongu. We dive right into it. Let's start with the issue of the National Cathedral, and I'll start from my left with lawyer Beatrice Annan on that issue. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Sena. Good morning to Uncle Kwesi and the honorable member. Dr. Kissi. I was hoping that Dr. Kissi will tell us why the money has finished for the cathedral first before I make my submission, but it's all well and good. This morning, I want to start my submission with a Bible quotation, which is Luke 14:28. Of course, the president received by revelation the promise to build the National Cathedral. I want to believe that the revelation came from the God of the Bible. So I want to read from the Bible so viewers can take a ride with me. Luke 14:28, and it reads, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit first and counts the cost, whether it has enough to finish it? lest after he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish, all will see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. This is not the NDC. This is not Beatrice Annan saying this. This is the Bible saying that any wise man who wants to build a tower, for that matter a cathedral, you need to sit down and do the estimate and ask whether you have money to do that. And so now I'm a very good Christian. I don't joke with my Christian life. In fact, I was the evangelism secretary of SU, so I embarked on a lot of evangelism, and I am everywhere I am because of God. But I think that there are important lessons in Christianity that our leaders must learn. So now Japan is not a Christian nation. Japan, the Japanese do not even believe in Christ. China is not a Christian nation. India is not a Christian nation. And these countries have been able to build their economies, to make the lives of their citizens better, and they are on a mission to doing a lot of wonders. Today, when we talk about financial technology, when we talk about IT, the Indians took a decision to develop their nation in that regard. And so if you go to Cambridge, if you go to Harvard, those in charge of technology, those in charge of IT-based or fintech-based organizations are Indians. We know the story of the Chinese. We know the stories of all these countries that move from third world countries to first world countries. And it is amazing that the president who in opposition promised to move the economy away from the Gotchesberg economy and to move the economy away from taxation to production is the president who has been the most wasteful president in the history of the Fourth Republic. And it is sad, especially as a young person, knowing that we entrusted our future to somebody who practically did not have any vision. I would not want to talk about the history of the cathedral, where we've got to the letters between the secretariat and some of the releases, because I know Honorable Okudzeto has been doing a very fine job and he's on a mission of exposing the government, so I'll leave those submissions for him to do. But most importantly, Sena, we live in an economy where unemployment is 13.7%, all-time high in the Fourth Republic. We live in an economy that secondary school children can practically not get food to eat. We live in an economy where there is what we call huge capital outflows because our macroeconomic indices are wrong. And when the government got the opportunity and had access to almost 200 million cedis, the government chose to sink that money into a project it in itself and in its belief did not have the vision to complete it. The government never intended to build any cathedral for God. It was never the intention of President Nanado and Dr. Bawumia, and for that matter the MPP government, to build any cathedral for God. Their sole intention was to dupe the citizens of this nation, take our taxes through the back door to enrich themselves. And so I am surprised that this government has no shame, they have no limit, that to the extent that they can even scam the citizens in the name of God. Because if the government really intended to build a cathedral for whatever religious and tourism purposes as we are being told, how on earth do you advance $21 million, which is almost payment of the citizens, to one consultant called David Ajayi, at a time when the project is not even 30% done? You can ask any architect, you can ask anybody in the real estate, and for that matter, the construction industry. Nowhere are you permitted to pay almost 100% for a project that is not even half done. What happens is that the projects are divided into phases. So you have the phase 1, you have the phase 2, you have phase 3, depending on what the consultant believes should be the phases. And when each phase is completed, you raise a certificate, it is paid. Or if you are a private person, when each phase is completed, you either pay before they begin it, or when they complete a phase, then you pay. Then you move on to the next phase. So the question is that now that we are being told that there is no money for the cathedral, and edifices have been demolished, resources have been wasted, and yet David Ajayi has been paid $21 million. Are we going to retrieve the money from him? It was just a way of sharing our hard-earned taxes to their cronies. I mean, behind the bars. Because at what rate did they come to the realization that the cathedral was no longer going to cost $100 million, and then it moved to 200, it moved to 300, and now we are even being told that we are going to the 400. Something just doesn't add up. And I say that I didn't really have any good expectations of the president, because I don't see how the president at his age of 78 years could see 30 years beyond him. He possibly can't see the nation that has been handed to him to govern, where we want to be in 30 years. And this lack of vision is consistent in all the policy formulations and implementations of this government. Every policy is a short-term policy. This government does not have any long-term policy to say that we are embarking on a certain project. We hope that in the next 30 years, in the next 40 years, in the next 50 years, they have no such policy, unless maybe Dr. Kissi will assist me. But I know of no policy, because if you take the planting for food and jobs, I can tell you that the policy was never to go beyond 2020. It was just for an election purpose. That is why after 2020, we have food inflation at almost 32%. I don't see any serious government who has a long-term measure to develop the agriculture sector, run the projects down like they have done it. Now, when you take NAPCO, they never had any long-term policy to employ young people. So today, we are told that as at 1st September, NAPCO no longer exists. Then came their famous program USTART that nobody even knows about. It's not even their own members of parliament or government spokesperson knows about what goes into the USTART. I think I'll have my bites on that for the second topic. But the point I'm making is that the manner in which the resources have been used for the cathedral is consistent with a certain lack of vision under this government. Because when President John Mahama had resources of 200 million TD, he could have decided to also build a shrine for the traditionalists or build a mosque for the Muslims. But no, when you live in a third world country such as ours, there are three indicators that we use to measure development. One, it is the quality of the standard of living. And so if you were a government and you had resources, you had to channel the resources towards areas that has the capacity of enhancing the quality of life of people. Two, it is life expectancy. What are the projects you are doing so that the average life will not be 60 years or even 55? But you are putting in place measures to take care of people who are old. You are building hospitals. You are improving infrastructure. You are even improving health, education, and all that. The government simply has no such plan to assist us to live high. And nobody is against the cathedral. But if you look at the capacity of the cathedral, we have private churches in this country with larger seating capacity than the cathedral, with larger space and everything larger than the cathedral. And we in Ghana, we are very, very denominated. We have Methodist, we have Presbyterian, we have so many churches, and even these one-man churches a lot. And although we all see ourselves as Christian, we are not like some nation that when you go, almost 80% of the people are maybe Anglicans, or 90% of the people are Catholics. For you to say that because in Ghana, majority of the people are Catholics, when we do the cathedral, this is what will happen. But there are private churches with bigger capacity. So why the rush? If not because you want to unjustly enrich yourself at the expense of the resources of the citizens. And the point also has to be made that the argument about using the cathedral as a tourist site, for me, is the weakest link in an already weak argument. So now if you want to see the oldest Bible in the world as part of your religious whatever inclinations you have, if you want to see the sword that Moses held, if you want to see the stone which the builders rejected, and all those other Bible edifices, would you come to Ghana? Would you come to Ghana to say that I'm coming to a tourist place, a national cathedral which has now become a fish pond? We can't even see where the foundation level is. Would you even come to Ghana to come and see that? So that's an already weak argument. If you look at the architecture, there is nothing so monumental about it that makes the architecture so unique. In fact, that architecture is similar to a certain mosque in one of these Turkish countries. So there are even issues of originality of designs. So you will not even come to Ghana for whatever reason, especially when you live in a country where your cedi is depreciated. When the person brings $1,000, it is cheaper to rent a hotel in Dubai than to rent a hotel in Ghana. Why would all these factors make somebody leave their country, use the resources they have worked so hard to say that I'm coming to look at the National Cathedral of Ghana? Or what about it is even national? A revelation that came to only the president, how did he even become national? And I want to say that we are headed in a very bad direction, because in the post-COVID economy where there is a chorus from everybody, whether MPP or NDC, that things are getting out of hand. Everything cannot hold. The center simply cannot hold. When government gets the opportunity to embark on some policy drive, and this is where they want to go, then I'm scared for the future of my nation. Because whereas your predecessor got resources and was building hospitals, markets, roads, power generation, every sector of the economy was being touched. At a point, they even sought to ridicule President Mahama to say that he's the Commissioner General. At a point, he was commissioning so much projects that he was named Commissioner General. And you came and you want to use our resources. And now all these resources have been sunk into a project that there is no future in sight. But are we surprised that the president is taking this route? It is consistent with how he's running his government. For President Akufo-Addo, you need to be a family member, an ex-girlfriend, a daughter, or something to have a place in his government. His baby mama is an ambassador. That cannot be denied. His baby mama. Baby mama is when you give birth to someone and you don't marry the person and you marry someone else. His baby mama is an ambassador. His secretary, the mother, Asante Bedietu, the mother is head of kitchen or whatever at the Flagstaff House. The father is a board member. His cousin is the finance minister. Another cousin is the roads minister. So the whole resources of the state have been personalized. So why are we surprised that he gets some divine revelation from God and he wants to personalize it? The president has no regard for the limited resources that we have vis-a-vis the numerous expenditure and the numerous developmental needs. He has no regard. This president, he likes partying than anybody. 1st July, he will party right now. As for the party, he's very good at it. When it comes to party, you can't beat him to it. As for that one there, the decor and everything, he's good at it. He wants to shower in the sky. He doesn't want to shower on the ground. Thanks to Honorable Okudzeto, we would never have known that our president has been playing video games in the sky and be showering. So that is how he views the public resources. For him, it matters not what the resources are to be used for, as long as it makes him happy. The president has lived all his life trying to lead demonstration, and kind courtesy Uncle Kwesi Pratt Jnr, they aided him and all that and led these demonstrations. And so when he looks at the Maslow theory of needs, he has struggled enough. At 78, he is at the peak, what we call the self-actualization. So at this point, our economic conditions are the least of his worries. What he wants is that when he was growing up, he saw that, there is a clinic called Mayo Clinic for the rich. At least, as we speak, I believe he's managing the economy from US. So anytime the internet is down, our economy is also down. That is the kind of government the president goes to. When he's on leave, he carries all his family at the expense of the state to France, the globe trotting. At a point every week, there is a release that the president is out of the country. That is the psychology of the NPP and President Nanado about the resources. Look at how when you take your pay slip, the taxes that are deducted when you buy ordinary groceries from the supermarket, the taxes that are deducted, and now even when you send money, the taxes that are deducted. Conscience, good governance practices, and the tenets of democracy should tell every president that I live in the country where majority of the young people are unemployed. I live in a country where single mothers can practically not take care of their children. I live in a country where young couples are struggling. I live in a country where bread is more expensive than the minimum wage of that country. Bread. Now bread is 25 cedis. Those ordinary ones are even 15 cedis. Higher than minimum wage. So the people who earn or whose salaries or wages are pegged at the level of minimum wage practically may not be able to afford bread for a day. And that is the state of the nation that you live in. And when you have the opportunity to allocate resources, you allocate it to your family and friends under the guise of a national cathedral. We are in a very sorry state. Which proves that leader has the administrative capacity and the mental fortitude to lead the nation is lacking as we speak. And sometimes I wonder why Dr. Bawumia is even the vice president. Because in all these, anybody who has a little bit of economic knowledge or has played ball with economic data should be tapping the president and telling him that, Mr. President, maybe you studied economics at University of Ghana, but what you did was the introduction, demand and supply. Climbing up the ladder and having a PhD, there are other factors that will influence the macroeconomic space. So pause. Don't use it. But the vice president is also an arbiter in all these things. In fact, now he says that he's a Methodist. he's a Methodist, so perhaps the National Cathedral or supporting the National Cathedral will go to support his belief in the Methodist Boys Brigade. We are joking in this country. We are joking. This government is joking with the precious future of the nation. So sometimes I ask myself, since the president loves the luxuries of life and he loves everything luxury, when he travels to US and he sees how people have built systems where young people have equal opportunity as politicians, when he goes to UK to beg for aid and he sees how the UK Prime Minister is riding on the bicycle, does it not prick his conscience? Does it not click to him to ask that what are we doing to also get here as Ghana? Or for him, we should always work. They gather our dollars and they go out and splash it. It's a very bad state that this government has put us in. And when you say they try to blackmail you that as Christians we are building a house for God, God will never dwell in a house that is built on lies and corruption and illegality. God is not that God. If it's the same Christian God that I worship, then God hates. The Bible says that God detests lies. God detests anything that will bring his name into disrepute. So God will not even dwell in the place. And the same Bible says that God does not even dwell in buildings. So the president should stop blackmailing everybody. And when it is an economic issue, he will tell you that God is in control. When it is a cathedral issue, he will tell you that it is for God. Even God says that, seeth a man diligent at his work, he shall stand before kings. The president must learn from God and be diligent at his work. Diligence is not when you pass our resources to David Ajayi. Diligence is not when you demolish buildings and offices that are to provide jobs for younger people in the name of building a cathedral. Diligence is not the kind of mismanagement we are seeing, where despite all the lack of resources, the president has some to waste. And so I would say that nobody should be surprised. This cathedral, the president never intended it to be a cathedral for us. It was just to benefit private friends, just like we saw in the testing at the airport.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, you got me inspired with the suggestion that the builders, that the stone that the builders rejected existed, by the way. But let me do a few of your messages before I move to Doc. This is Samuel Ama says, are we lucky because they have collapsed our economy due to their TV? Corruption, lawlessness, arrogance, etc. Asanko Santa Maria Senda. Okay. Abdul Salam Arafat says, a good morning. Watching you live from Boku. The leaders of this country think they are fooling the citizens, but they should know that they can fool us sometimes, but not all the time. Real Ghana says, what's the significance of the 15% COLA for Ghanaian workers when the same MPP government has increased utilities tariff by 27.15 and 21.5? MPP government will give Ghanaians with his right hand and use the left hand and collect same. This is Suleiman Abdul Rahim from Tamale. Says, why are civil society organizations silent about the Auditor General report? Some of them were very active in President Mahama's era. You say Richard Ashile is also joining us. This MPP has lost hope in themselves. They were told this cathedral is a scam, but because they want to make themselves rich, they never mind. The fuel increment is rising. Okay, fuel has gone up again. There is Ibrahim Jonathan, who says the National Cathedral project is not necessary. Christians already have places of worship. The OSP should investigate the money spent on the project. I suspect they spent the money on the 2020 elections. Kweku Seche Akumia says, please tell my dear sister to stop the Christianity, because these leaders swore in the name of the holy books, but here they are scamming us in the name of God. $300 million for a cathedral. Wicked leaders, men at the age of 60 plus. And then it continues. Eric Okusapano is joining us, saying a good morning to us. Free SHS, Cathedral, Sky Trade, One Village, One Dam, and other numerous ones are clear cases of causing financial loss to the state by Nana Akufo-Addo and a solid team. And some should be their resting place. Charles Edu is joining us from Gomwa, German, who says the idea to build that planned gigantic edifice was ill-advised one, taking into cognizance of the abject poverty and hardship we find ourselves in. Money injected into it so far could have brought relief to us. Jude Kumbongo is also joining us. In 2016, Dr. Bawumia told us that we are sitting on money, and that how can you sit on money and be suffering? John Maham's posterity is judging them. There's Hamza Mohammed who is joining us. This squad you have brought, okay, I hear you. And there's Jafar Jantong Daboshi is joining us. Ghana is sinking under President Akufo-Addo and NPP era. Every day price of fuel is going up. So those are just some of the messages you are sending to us. The last time the president commented on the matter of the cathedral was 27th July. He was speaking at the 19th Plenary Assembly of the Symposium of Episcopal Conference of Africa and Madagascar. And this is what he had to say. These are quotes from him. My personal view has always been that even though the cathedral will be very much a national institution, the cost should be largely borne by the Christian community, with the state providing the land and initial funding to get the project off the ground. It will serve as a collective thanksgiving to the Almighty for the blessings he has bestowed on Ghana, sparing the nation of ravages of civil war that have bedeviled the histories of virtually all neighbors and outbreak of mass epidemics. Looking through the history of all great cathedrals of the world, there has never been what can be called an appropriate time to build a cathedral. Invariably, it has taken many years, sometimes centuries, to complete. Let me hear from Doc.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to be on this show. Pardon my long absence due to other commitments. But it's always nice. Alhaji, greetings to all your viewers and listeners at the various radio stations, and Anyaa Sowutuom residents. Greetings to them all. It's a tough topic to discuss, especially the cathedral, and I'm going to be as fair-minded as possible when it comes to the cathedral. I'll take one quote from the president in that there's never an opportune or appropriate time to build a cathedral. So that is a very powerful admission in the sense that it's almost like Ghana giving aid to Chad Republic. Have we finished fighting poverty in Ghana? No. But we're still out of the need of taking care of our brothers. Give help to other nations when there's trouble. We also even go for peacekeeping, but there's wars sometimes in our northern sectors of this country. But we lend some of our policemen and soldiers to peacekeeping for that reason of togetherness. So one thing is for sure, there will never be the best time. And pardon me, I think there's been many monumental things done in the world when people had issues. I would only refer us to something that is very local. The Jubilee House, or in other jurisdiction, the Flagstaff House. I know that President Kufuor had a lot of naysayers. President Kufuor, to the extent that very powerful, influential men in this country said that it was a chicken coop. And this is Ghana. Today, we've all come to appreciate the Flagstaff House or Jubilee House. Granted, we said a lot of interesting things. And I don't know if our Heavenly Father, the Almighty God, is a comedian. in the sense that the noise or the noisiest people about the Jubilee House building were the first to really actually enjoy it. And what I mean by that is that, granted, the NDC, and let me be very specific here, bashed President Kufuor several years ago about the intention to build the Jubilee House. Interestingly, as God would have it, the NDC partook of the edifice under the leadership of late Professor Atta Mills, and later on President Mahama. So these are some of the interesting things when we embark on very bold and audacious things. Now, fast forwarding to the cathedral. Yes, of course, the Almighty God does not live in buildings, and if that were the case, then our old traditional worship of idolatry would be the thing in vogue, in the sense that when Moses went away to talk to the Almighty God, his followers, the Israelites, were rather putting together ornaments and things to depict that their God lived in those things. And we know from the Old Testament that definitely, certainly, God doesn't live in buildings. But then, in the same Old Testament, many men promised, and to a large extent, some fathers started and then their children came to complete. And some fathers were told that in as much as they start, they will not live to see the beginnings. And the allegory of all of this takes me back to even Moses, when interestingly he fought for the Israelites but couldn't see the promised land. I mean, he couldn't step foot on the promised land, in the sense that these are some of the things that I think are quite interesting. So what is for sure, per the happenings, I can be a bit prophetic and say that it is highly unlikely that President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo will be in power when the cathedral comes to, a closure. But I'm hoping, I would have loved to have the 2025 inauguration in this cathedral. I would have loved to. It's only a wish. If I come into money like Okudzeto, Ablakwa, a lot of money, then I would bequeath a huge amount of dollars to let this come to completion. Or if I should win the lottery, like in the America, somebody just won several billions of dollars. If I should come into that, hallelujah, I can make this vision of the president.
Will God accept money from lottery?
It's a business. Lottery is a business. So I really think that these are some of the realities. Now, personally, I think that there should be an admission of guilt, in the sense that I really think that in as much as the cathedral was a vision of the president, it should have been subjected to national debate. It should have been subjected to the roadmap used for many projects in this country, and that is where personally I think that we dropped the ball in that regard. And I also personally, I'm even of the opinion that the cathedral could have been outside Accra at a very bigger, nicer place. And pardon me, I went to, I think, Dark Haywood Mills' place further beyond Ibri, and I am of the opinion that if we had something further away to also drive people to that location, then parking space would be much serene, more green environment, more accommodating than the hustle and bustle of Accra city. So these are just my personal opinion, and I can also make that case that even within the MPP caucus, people have varying opinion. So I would want Ghanaians to come to that actualization that it's not like we're all singing hallelujah to this. I mean, there are disparate opinions when it comes to the cathedral. Just as even the Free SHS stat had disparate opinion, even within the MPP, some thought that we could have waited a year or more before starting. So let that be a very important notice that, you know, there are many schools of thought. But what is very important, I really think that moving forward, now that it has become a private, you know, entry into now a national project, it is important that I think we submit it to Parliament for the necessary corrections to be done to this project, because it is on national property. The land where this project is going to be seated is on national property, and in as much as there's been contractual agreements that were not done appropriately, I really think that from an investment moving forward is where I come in. I really think that we ought to subject it a debate in the House. Granted, we know this is almost a slam dunk thing. Like it's gotten to a point where it's not about should we build. I mean, really, but more importantly, how and what portions are going to come from the private sector or donors and things like that. But in as much as we proceed, I would also thank the National Imam for making a contribution to this. It shows how the two key religions in this country come together once in a while to do a common good. And I also think that it's not necessarily just for tourism. You know, some inaugurations have been impacted by rainfall, and these were national big events. And I think that personally, I've seen many programs done in very nice cathedrals, which were even national. And I would have wished, and I always say this, that you know, former President Atta Mills's burial, Rawlins's burial, all of these would have been very much nicer if we had a bigger auditorium to do this instead of the current national international conference center which was used. So if we really want to go into the positives, there are plenty. I mean, I can name a whole lot. Granted, the coloring has been just the fact that there's a president's vision, you know, but presidents have visions. Kennedy put people on the moon at all cost. I hope you understand. Granted, that was a scientific, innovative thing, but I'm just saying that, you know, presidents do have visions and proceed on some of these things on their own prerogative type thing, and I think that in our local language, you say Asami Deka, it's already happened to the extent that grounds have been broken, and we are now in the thick of it, and it's almost like doing surgery. You open up and you realize that you know, one or two things are amiss. What do? You don't just raise your hands and lift it and have the patient die. You have to proceed and do all you can to save the patient. And I think that we're at that point where our president has gone to bring Ghana a cathedral, and we all have to make it work in the sense that I think there are more positives, not even just on the religious side, but as a nation, we deserve, or we need such an infrastructure for other national programs. But the price tag, that is where I think when it's subjected to parliamentary review, things will come to a more clearer, view. And let me also add that, yes, there may be other synagogues in this country. Private infrastructure and its quality assurance is very different from government quality assurance. In terms of the concrete thickness, the wall thickness, in terms of the glaze, things they use. I mean, governmental projects and its quality standards are very different in the sense that it may even have the same capacity of, if it's even 2,000 or 5,000 or 100,000. But the seating, the chairs, the furniture, the furnishing, per governmental standards might be totally different. I've sat in a plane, first class, same plane, first class, you can feel your experience. Third class, different experience. So I really think that, and even hotel rooms, Marriott hotel occupancy, and then another, local, local hotel, same occupancy rate, but the finishing, the furnishing is totally different. So we cannot just compare in that sense. As much as I respect many synagogues in this country or cathedrals, this is one of a kind, and it will not be the same. And I think that, and I hope that when this is completed, when we are hosting big national events, when we enter, we'll be very happy, and the experience will speak for itself, and we'll be awestruck when this happens. I mean, who knows? The restaurants are also plush, and I think it's almost like a Qatar experience. When you look at, recently I was looking at some of the stadiums in Qatar, and I can tell you there are stadiums and there are stadiums. In the sense that when I saw the Qatar stadium, I was like, my goodness, it felt like it's brutal, and I would have never imagined that a soccer experience can be this enjoyable, to the extent that you feel like you're at a big time hotel watching a game at ease, and my goodness. And that is why I think that when the cathedral is done, and we all go there to worship and praise the Almighty God, it'll be just wonderful. And I also like the embedding of the local symbols, Jinyame, Adinkra, and all these things, which is selling what Ghana is. And I think 10 years from now, or who knows, 15 years from now, we'll look back and say that we had challenges, but this building, this edifice has lifted the image of what it is to be Ghanaian, and I'm looking at it from that positive side. So what is sunken cost, what is gone already or spilled already, spilled milk, as they say, needs no further discussion. In terms of what has gone to the payment of the architect, I mean, quote unquote, his work done, he's been paid, though heavy, though ununderstandable in certain domains. I think that when the remaining project is subjected to parliamentary review, all of these things will make sense, and then the appropriation and the planning to execute this, and let me say that, in fact, this has not been said anywhere, but let me tell you this: some presidents have taken nations to war, and it has cost the nations quadruple this amount. I'm thankful that President Nana Akufo-Addo is not taking us to war, because he can't. Oh no! Let me make that point. That out of having a very bad decision-making process, a president can take this country to war. Some presidents have taken other countries to war. We are here looking at Putin, who has taken a whole nation to war. And me, as I sit here to date, looking at World War I and II, and where we've gotten to, and I'm wondering, why would any president take a nation to war? Look at the cost of this war to Russia, and look at the cost of this war to Ukraine. and even the entire world. We are here. Our president is not taking us to war. The thing he's done is taking us to a cathedral. I think it could be worse. You understand? So we ought to just consider it as one of the mishaps, or if even so, is not a war where lives are being lost and a lot more money, not what we are seeing, a lot more money. Wars are very expensive, and I think that I'll take this, which is a peacemaking agenda, bringing religions together is peacemaking, and maybe I can borrow from the adage, if you think peace is expensive, try war. So I'm borrowing from the adage, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And that is what I'm just saying, that if he's chosen unity over war, we ought to commend him. And that is also expensive. And every religious body is talking about the cathedral. It is bringing us all together, whether Catholicism, Protestants, Methodists, whatever. We're all coming together. One-man churches, all of them. And in concluding, with regards to the National Cathedral, we are all for it. We support the president in his decision, and I think that we ought to submit it to parliamentary scrutiny, and I believe in Parliament in the sense that, considering our oversight authority and the long service that Parliament has given to this country, it will be the best ground for all to come to an agreement that, okay, the blocks cost X amount, the glasses cost X amount, it's agreed on, and then we move on and go to other pressing issues in this country. So thank you, Sena, for this opportunity.
Thank you. If you just join us, the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, we are live on Pan-African Television on a social media platform. Facebook, we are on Pan-African Television. We are also on Pan-African TV on YouTube. We are live on Radio Gold. A big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM. Before I go to Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, just a few messages. This is from Ambassador Sampiale, who says, Nanado knew that religion has intoxicated Ghanaians, and so he found the cathedral as another space to scam Ghanaians. In every sphere of life in Ghana, from insurance to sanitation, there's corruption everywhere. One day, all the persons who have been used to scam Ghanaians will either face the law or face God eventually. Even COVID-19 was managed by his cousin, the former Chief Justice. He says there are other messages. This one is coming. Okay, this one is coming. I think Papa Bishio, who says he recklessly went on spending expeditions on over 120 ministers, using our cash on demolition of over 21 judges' houses, replacing some houses for them again, demolishing Malian embassy plus passport office, again taking the responsibility of looking for other places for them, still spending on hard-earned taxpayers' money's cash on all this, just to pave way for unnecessary venture like so-called National Cathedral, again siphoning our cash by his cousin Ken Foyata to construct ongoing cathedral. Still not satisfied, Nanado goes around in the world in expensive jets, flying and bathing in the air, all on hard-earned taxpayers' cash. Meanwhile, La people in Accra and Shama residents in Western region are still waiting for their hospitals that he promised them. That's from Papa BCU. Musa Batua is also joining us. Says another cathedral is not being built to honor God, but an avenue created for some people under the guise of pastoral to siphon public funds. Nonetheless, as much as we are applauding Auditor General for doing good work, we must as well admonish him to apply the law to the latter, as his predecessor was doing. Surcharge those implicated and retrieve monies that are lost through negligence and acts of corruption. That's from Musa Batua. Kwesi Kissi in Gomuankran is also joining us. What did we do wrong to Nana and his government? We are paying COVID-19 and Bola taxes, while ladies are paying for menstrual taxes in addition, and civil servants paying taxes on cola. Fuel prices are up today, while bills for water and electricity are also up today. NPP only came to enrich themselves, but not the welfare of ordinary citizens. This one Okay. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Shanga versus a good one. Please tell the NPP man that Professor Mills never slept in the Jubilee House even 1 minute. He spent all his presidential life in the Osu Castle. I don't think he mentioned anybody in particular. He just said the NDC were benefits of it, if I recall. Adim Pigfam said, did I hear the president say Ghanaians are lucky to have us our president? Mr. President, you are rather lucky to have become president. Like your people would say, there's a good man, we didn't allow him to become president. There's nothing so extraordinary about your presidency. The good people of Ghana thought you would be a different president, not knowing, comparing you to the humble and hardworking JDM. JDM is nothing but a saint, and we need to canonize him. And that's coming from Alhaji Hadim Pikfam. Idi Gideon is also joining us. Please tell the Honorable Adomako Kissi to be fair to himself and to the people of Ghana, as he tries as much as possible to defend the indefensible. This is actually a hard time to speak or defend the government. Reason being that they seem not to be living in Ghana, in the Ghana we are in. The people of Ghana will get more vindicated going forward with regards to the so-called personal cathedral termed as national cathedral. It is sad. And this one is from Lagbaja, who says, please, is a right to information bill working under Nanado Baumia leadership? If yes, then why is the system quiet? Please educate. Okay, that's coming from Lagbaja. Good morning to you, Lagbaja. Let me go to Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa. Good morning. He's been doing quite some substantial work on the issue of the National Cathedral.
And good morning to you, to the panel, and to all our distinguished audience across the globe. It's always an honor to be on Alhaji and Alhaji. The matter in issue, the unending debate on the National Cathedral. Should we even be calling it a National Cathedral? There is a nomenclature contention. I will opine that it's really President Akufo-Addo's cathedral. As my honorable colleague conceded in his submission, this project is yet to come before us in Parliament. He is a very punctual and committed member of Parliament. He's not one of those absentee MPs. So at least I can salute him for his commitment to the proceedings in the House. We don't have to belong to the same party for me to make that, obvious and honest admission. So, knowing him, if this matter had been raised in Parliament and we had debated it and it had become a national project, he will really have been there and participating in the proceedings, and he will know. That's why he says that he's hoping that it will be brought to Parliament. But look, after the horses have bolted from the stable, it's too late now. So I contend that it is really Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's cathedral. It is not a national cathedral. Now, having said that, this week, Dr. Paul Opoku-Mensah is the one who has reignited the debate when he put out information that work has been suspended for lack of payments. I want to submit forcefully that the statement that Dr. Opoku-Mensah made this week is only a confirmation of what we put out long ago, many, many weeks ago. You recall that on the 9th of June this year, I put out documents as evidence to the incontrovertible fact that work on President Akufo-Addo's cathedral has been suspended. And the documents I put out on the 9th of June, I have a copy here, dated March 14, 2022. It is a notice of termination of appointment document, and this letter was served on all workers of the Cathedral project. That same day, the 14th of March, they were asked to all go home after receiving this letter. And this is what the letter said. Notice of termination of appointment. Due to lack of payment from National Cathedral of Ghana, which has resulted in the project being suspended, Ribade Company Limited are required under the contract to mitigate costs. In compliance with such an obligation under the contract, Ribade Company Limited has no option but to issue this letter of notice terminating the agreement between Ribade Company Limited and you as per the provisions of your employment agreement. This notice of termination takes effect on the 14th of March 2022. You are therefore, please take note, the letter was dated 14th of March and it says it takes effect that same day, 14th of March 2022. You are therefore requested to hand in all properties, that is safety equipment, etc., belonging to the company in your possession to the HR office by close of work of the same day. Yours faithfully, Grant Ramsey, project manager. I have engaged with the workers. There were about 200 of them who were asked to go home. They have remained home since the 14th of March. On the 9th of June, we put out this information after engaging with the workers. So what the executive director put out this week is only a confirmation of what we had put out far back. And it tells you that all the work we have done on this Akufo-Addo Cathedral project is top-notch, is authentic, is credible, is inviolable, is irrefutable, and indeed is unimpeachable. Now, this week's announcement raises a number of questions. How is it that after all the hundreds of millions of Ghana cedis pumped into this project, when you read this letter, the contractors, Ribade, and let me indicate that Ribade is a consortium of a sort, a joint venture of 3 Italian companies. So the RE is for Rizani Di Echa, SPA. The BA in there is for Babisotti, and DE is for Di Simeone. So Rizani Di Echa, Babisotti, and Di Simeone came together to form this joint venture known as Ribade. Even that process is a whole scandal on its own. How they were given money, asked to go on site without recourse to the procurement law, and you know I filed a right to information request. The Public Procurement Authority says, hey, please, keep us out. We have no knowledge of Ribade. There was no procurement approval from us. We gave them money to move to site even before they themselves set up an account. And even before they got incorporated at the Registrar General. So the whole joint venture matter is another scandal on its own. Very putrefying, very stenchy scandal that we will have to discuss and deal with later. But back to the point I was making. The contractors are saying, telling their workers that due to lack of payments, we have to mitigate costs. You have to go home. So since the 14th of March, these workers have been home. The work we have done reveals that about 199 million, so 200 million Ghana cedis. And let me be clear that the Auditor General is not comprehensive with his work. And I can understand. The Auditor General, his audit, if you look at the constitutional mandate, is for, he audits 1 year at a time. So the 142 million that the Auditor General speaks of is only the 19th October 2020 illegal withdrawal from the consolidated fund by the finance minister in clear violation of Article 178 of the 1990 Constitution. That is what the Auditor General has reported on. But let nobody be misled to thinking that that is all that has been illegally withdrawn. after the 142 million, there was a 32 million cedis given to David Ajay from the office of the president, and then there was another 25 million Ghana cedis illegally withdrawn from the consolidated fund by Ken Ofori-Atta. So you need to be clear in your mind that there were other withdrawals, which the Auditor General, I'm sure, will capture when the Auditor General audits the account of 2021 and then of 2022, because there have been more illegal withdrawals that we continue to track. And indeed, if you will recall, we have put out documentation, the warrants, the letters from the Minister of Finance asking that the withdrawal should be made by the Controller Accountant General. And we have tracked all the way to even receipts. We have stamped documents and all of that. Account numbers of Ribade Company Limited receiving the funds. We've put all of that documentation out. We have been very thorough in the work that we have done. And so far, no party, no entity in this whole scandalous architecture has been able to challenge anything that we have put out. Now, the fundamental question that this week's revelation poses is that all of these illegal withdrawals, where did those monies go? Because I can tell you, Sana, that when we engaged people close to this project, and I just want to have to protect sources and all of that, they were shocked, like most Ghanaians were, on the amount of withdrawals that have been made from the Consolidated Fund. Look, I can tell you that even top members of the Board of Trustees didn't know that so much money had been withdrawn. And to be fair to those top clergy, eminent clergy on the Board of Trustees, some of the withdrawals we have tracked, Finance Minister authorizes Controller to release the funds, and then they pay the money directly, not through the National Cathedral Secretariat, not through the Secretariat, not through the board. They pay directly to either David Ajay or to Ribade Company Limited. So you can understand. That is why I have taken it a bit easy on the eminent clergy. I have not really joined the school of thought that says that no, they must all be held liable and they must all be bashed equally as the president, his finance minister, and all those who are engaged in this gross illegality. I say that they have been deceived, like all of us. Where I will agree with many other people is why so far only the Reverend Mensa Otabil has distanced himself and left the board. One will have thought that that is what all of them will have done to save their reputation. At least on that score, for that aspect, I agree with the sentiment out there by most Ghanaians that, look, you are being deceived, you are being misled. A lot of things are happening over and above you. If you are not really part of the conspiracy, stay away. Because look, there are legal obligations. When they say you are a board of trustees, you cannot claim one day that you really didn't know they were just doing these things in your name and think that you will get away. So I will renew the call that it is important for the board of trustees, because this mess, look, these are people who have built reputations over decades. They are known internationally, celebrated globally. They don't deserve this. In the twilight of their career, they do not deserve this reputation, this mess that is now associated to their name. And I hope that they will do the honorable thing and leave the board of trustees. So the question that I was relating to, Where did the monies go? Because that's what we should be asking. To me, that's the most fundamental question about this revelation that was made this week. Where did all the monies go? Because you see, in our tracking, we have also spoken to owners of properties demolished. And they tell us that they have not been compensated. I will have cut the government some slack if, despite the money not going into the project, they probably used it for compensation, because we know that there's a tall list of demolitions that took place. That is why I say, Sena, on this matter of demolitions, this cathedral project will go down as the most reckless, the most insane project that any government in the world has ever executed. Why adopt this model? Look, even very rich nations, very wealthy countries will not adopt this model. A model that says that, look, Ghana has so much money, we have so much to spare, that we are going to cite this cathedral project, this president's personal pledge. We are going to cite it at a place where we have to demolish the scholarship secretariat. Scholarship secretariat has existed since the Nkrumah era. Elsewhere, they preserve such properties. It becomes a tourist attraction. Do you know the caliber of people who have gone through that scholarship secretariat as teenagers, as young men in early 20s, have obtained government scholarship and have become prominent citizens, have helped in the forward march of our country? If we weave a story around that and it becomes well packaged for tourist attraction, do you know how many people would like to go there? I mean, you go to the small town of Lille in France. What makes that town popular? It's just because one of their celebrated statesmen, Charles de Gaulle, was born in Lille. And you know the amount of money they make from that. They have preserved where he was born, his grandmother's house. The cot that he slept in, and the kitchen where he will eat with the grandmother, and all of everything preserved. And people pay to go and see that. Who informed the demolition, that decision to demolish the scholarship secretariat? Who agreed to that? Why was that discussed? Why didn't that come to Parliament? Why were the people of Ghana not told that the scholarship secretariat was going to be demolished? We just heard that it has been demolished. I mean, is that the understanding of democratic authority? The fact that you are elected does not mean that the country now belongs to you. Even dictators would not dare do that. My brother was saying that we should thank the president that he didn't take us to war like some other presidents have done. In our constitution, my brother knows, or ought to know, that no president can just on his own so motu just declare war. You must come to Parliament. Certain number is required. It's not even just a simple majority decision. And the whole country, there has to be some consultation before you declare war. So, scholarship secretariat demolished. Passport office, another edifice, national edifice. As ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I know that we have spent tens of millions of cedis not long ago, a few months ago, to renovate, refurbish the entire passport office. It was demolished a few weeks thereafter. We had to spend another 10 million cedis to relocate the passport office opposite GIJ. That's where it is now. There was an old abandoned bungalow. We had to raise it down, spend 10 million cedis to relocate. As for the scholarship secretariat, they are still perching somewhere. They are waiting for their relocated facility. We didn't end there. Judicial Training Institute, judges bungalows. I mean, can you believe it? Judicial Training Institute, which has existed, that's where our judges, High Court, Appeal Court, Supreme Court, because judges are not people who can just go to enter any class for refresher courses. Or that's where, you know, their skills are sharpened. That's where, you know, they are retrained and all of that. And other eminent jurists have come from the sub-region, from all over the world, to use that facility. It was raised down. Bungalows for judges. Do you know, Sena, that since the Judicial Training Institute was raised down, our Chief Justice is now cap in hand, hopping from one financial institution to the other, looking for a $50 million loan to build a new Judicial Training Institute. Are you aware? I have seen his $50 million proposal. He first sent it to the ECOWAS Bank for investment and development. I'm sure at their board meeting they said, look at these Ghanaians. They think we don't have value for money. We don't have anything to do with them. You have a functioning Judicial Training Institute. You go and demolish it, and you want $50 million from us. The Chief Justice was flatly turned down. He is now at the World Bank. He sent his proposal to the World Bank. And I know what is going on there. Nothing is going to come from that. Judges' bungalows. Some of the judges were given 48-hour notice to move. In the process, one of the finest juries, appeal court judges this country has ever produced, Justice Said Kwekujan, whose wife, and let me reveal that for the first time, had just gone through surgery that same week. And he was pleading just for more time so the wife can recuperate. And asking for justification. Why are these bungalows going to be demolished? 48-hour notice. This is a man who, the 2012 Bar Conference, he was given a special award by the Bar Association as the most upright. These are not my words. They said the most upright and unblemished judge, appeal court judge, by the Ghana Bar Association. Justice Said Kwekujan had to just resign. He said, look, enough is it. This country is not worth dying for. He resigned. We lost this eminent jurist. The few unblemished, upright amongst us. We lost him. He resigned. Now let me ask a question, Sena. Can you imagine if it was an NDC government led by President Mahama who demolished Judicial Training Institute, and he didn't come back a year after or 2 years after, but that same swoop, that same day, also demolished judges' bungalows? Just think about it. Imagine what will have happened in this country. How the NDC will have been portrayed. Only this week, President Mahama has come under another round of attack because he went for NDC lawyers conference and said that, look, the mess in the judiciary, only a new Chief Justice can help clean it up. They said, hey, up in arms. They say attack on the judiciary. Can you imagine? Just word of mouth. Chief Justice is about to retire. He hasn't said anybody should go and remove or attack the Chief Justice physically. He only says that he hopes that a new Chief Justice will help clean the stable. Come and see. And yet, somebody who physically takes bulldozers, raises down the Judicial Training Institute, demolishes bungalows, not one bungalow, not two, not three, about 14 bungalows. He's being praised. He's being hailed. We hear that he loves the judiciary. President Mahama, who hasn't lifted a finger, who hasn't touched anybody, hasn't changed anybody's sleeping place, he doesn't like the judiciary. NDC, we don't like the judiciary. I mean, can you just think about it for a second? If an NDC government had the temerity, the effrontery, the audacity to pull down the Judicial Training Institute, judges' bungalows, just imagine what would have happened.
Honorable, you have to wrap up for me.
Yes, yes. There will have been by now a national commemoration, which will be annual, when the judiciary came under attack, when their training institute, when their bungalows, when judges were displaced, became homeless, and they had to go and put up. Look, the dramatization, the videos that will emerge, the papers that will be delivered. Oh my goodness. NDC member will have run out of the country. That is why I say that, look, the model we adopted, look, even if we will have had a national debate, we will have had a discussion, and then we all agree that, okay, we want to have a national cathedral. Would this have been the model for an IMF bailout country? A country that cannot pay its youth, NAPCO workers, for 11 months. The CPA people, community protect, the community protection agency that was set up to support the Ghana Police Service. Only yesterday they were asked to all go home, about 8,000 of them. You can't pay allowances. 7 months, 8 months. Youth unemployment is an all-time high. Industries are collapsing. Is this the model to you? That's why I say it's the most reckless, the most insane methodology, approach, model. We didn't end there. We demolished the Malian ambassador's residence. I have cited the agreement. He has been promised a new one at Airport Residential. You know the costs of land at Airport Residential. Government has only now managed to get him the land. He is waiting for his residence to be built for him. Then private developers, the IT firm Comsys, Waterstone Realty, an modern apartment complex. They had employed over 100 people. All of that raised down. As for Waterstone Realty, they allocated bungalow for them. Apparently, national security operatives are living there. They say they won't move. Can you imagine? Within the same government. See how wicked we can be to fellow Ghanaians. So since the Lands Commission allocated that property to them, 2 years now, national security operatives refusing to move. So Waterstone Realty is now in court demanding judgment debt. And they are going to get a fat one. We have estimated that the cost of this demolition and compensating owners of demolished properties would not be less than $100 million. So anytime you are talking about the cost of this national cathedral, don't end at $400 million for just the actual building. You must add the cost of demolition and compensation. $100 million must be added. It's a conservative estimate. So the question is, where did all the money go? You didn't pay for compensation. Now we see the place. We have put out footage from the place. You see it's a dugout. Some are calling it now a Galamsey pit. All the experts, the analysts, engineers we've spoken to, they say that that cannot be 200 million cedis. Now, Sena, what is also shocking is that even after the workers have been asked to go home on the 14th of March, do you know that the illegal withdrawals continued? We have put out evidence that on the 31st of March, Kenoforiata continued again and said, controller, release 25 million. So work has suspended, workers have gone home, and yet you are still withdrawing money. For what? Where did those monies go to? So look, as for this national cathedral, this Akufo-Addo Cathedral matter, Sena, if people do not go to jail, the image of the NDC will sink so low. A future NDC, because we know that now under this regime we can't expect regime accountability. And to the extent that this is the president himself who is at the center of this conspiracy. Now, Sena, I must conclude on this point. Many speakers have been speaking as though the project we are discussing, the project in issue, is really the lost project, is the lost temple. And my brother, the Honorable Dr. Adomako, says that, I don't know what kind of propaganda is that, if he had some of the money I have, we earn the same salary. I don't have any money that he doesn't have, He probably is richer. He has some private practice, which I don't have, So, my brother, let's be clear. This is a secular project. When you listen to all the proponents of this, Dr. Polopoku Mensah himself, he says the designs and even the addition, many people do not know that Dr. David Ajayi has 2 contracts. Apart from the $25 million we paid him, he charged us for a second design, an amendment to his original design. Many people don't know that. It is a secular project. That edifice, when it is completed, if it is ever going to be completed, I doubt, it is going to be used for secular activities. They say that they would rent it out to anybody who wants to do anything. So I want to plead with the Christian community. This over piety and holiness and expectation that this is some holy build. Already, look, this project is defiled. The only time, you remember in the Bible, the only time Jesus Christ took the whip was when they were defiling the temple in Jerusalem, and he whipped people in that temple. If Jesus is to come down now, the way people will be lashed for doing that in the name of God. So let's be clear, and I conclude with evidence here. This is the document the Attorney General filed in response to the James Kwabena Bonfe case. This is his statement of case. At page 41, this is what he told the eminent Supreme Court judges. We consider the National Cathedral. Respectfully, we submit that in this case too, the involvement of the government is very limited in nature. The government only proposes to provide a piece of land for the construction of a national cathedral by the different denominations. You see how they went to lie at the Supreme Court? Misled the judges? I continue. The funding for the construction and maintenance of the National Cathedral is to be provided by the Christian community. Not by the government, not by illegal withdrawals from the Consolidated Fund. By the Christian community and not government. Now listen to this, Sena. This is very important. It is also proposed by government that the cathedral will be available for secular uses. Secular uses. For some state funerals, Thanksgiving services, etc. It is submitted that this is no different from the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., which, though religiously affiliated, is used for many formal state events by the U.S. government. So I want to plead with the Christian community. That's why I really don't know what those eminent priests are still doing on that board. This is not stricto sensu the lost temple. It's a secular building. They intend to do all kinds of events there. Events that are not likely to glorify God, because we know that the person designing this cathedral, we know his public pronouncements, how he has said that he supports the gay community and he will do everything to help them flourish. You think that if the gay community wants to organize an event at this secular cathedral, they will be blocked? So let's stop this over, sanctification and, piety about how holy this project is. There's nothing holy about it. Okay. Let me finally say, Sena, finally. People will have to be jailed. What we have seen, Ken Ofuriata, controller and accountant general, all those who are aiding, the president himself, this David Ajayi, and all of those associated to this project. This project is a crime scene. And I am hoping that a future Attorney General, a future NDC administration will do what the people of this country expect. That is why the fundraising is not going well. You heard Dr. Poku Mensah. The fundraising is not going well because Christians have realized that this thing, as my dear sister was saying, clearly, apparently it was not about glorifying God. It was not about temple. It was just a conduit of siphoning funds.
Thank you. Thank you.
I conclude finally. Just 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I beg you, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Because my brother here has repeated that. And then Dr. Paulo Poku Mensah also said that during the week. I think it is most offensive. It's so insulting to liken this project to Kwame Nkrumah's sterling, transformative, game-changing projects. I mean, I was so affronted when I heard Dr. Paulo Poku Mensah say that, oh, it was the same thing when Nkrumah was building the Akosombo Dam. I mean, can you imagine? Can you believe it?
Really?
Yes. The video is there. You can... I mean, I've played it over and over again. I couldn't believe it. That it was the same reaction Kwame Nkrumah got for building the Akosombo Dam, building the Temamoto Way. And President Kufuor got the same reaction for the Jubilee House. So what is going on here? You compare this personal pledge based on deception and lies. In Ghana, do we lack event centers? This is a circular structure you have built. This structure is not different from Accra International Conference Center or National Cathedral. It's not different. You want to compare Akosombo Dam, you want to compare Temamoto Way, the shipyard, to this. I mean, please, look, we've had enough of the insult. Look, you come and steal our money, withdraw money from the consolidated fund, insult Parliament, treat Parliament with contempt, and then after, you come and tell us that we really don't think, because that's what you are telling us, that criticizing this is like criticizing the Akosombo Dam, which up to now still provides more than 70% of our electricity, which has been responsible for the little industrialization and economic might that we have, which exports power to our neighboring countries. You compare this project to that. I mean, you just see the mindset of these people. Look, some of these people have no business coming anywhere near public office. And I'm deeply, deeply outraged by this kind of comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just do a few messages and then I'll come to Mr. Pratt. This is just two. This is from Kwesi. Sena Nombo should be asking the government how David Ajay was paid for submission of architectural and engineering drawings and then subsequently paid to completion for the duration of the construction of the whole edifice. $32 million has been paid to Ajay for project supervision and completion for a project that does not have funds to complete. I have never heard of this in the 30 years since I earned my commission as a civil engineer. I have classmates I have consulted with. None of them has ever heard of a scenario like this. Every project consultant and contractor, for that matter, raises interim payment certification, which is verified and paid. Indeed, it is for reasons of force majeure situations, such as the lack of funds now prevailing, that such a practice is never done. So who is going to prorate the money that has been handed to Ajay? And if we never find the money, who retrieves the funds that have already been advanced to him? Let us simply understand that the money has been given to Ajay, knowing full well that there were no funds to complete the project so that he can share it with those who brought him. That's all. He has also been paid to TEM for Agenda 111 and the useless art gallery in Venice that houses Ghanaian artifacts. There are several thousands of consultants and contractors who are owed billions for work actually completed. They have never been paid. As we speak, Akufo-Addo and his gang owe over 8 billion cedis to contractors. Let me say a big thank you to Shine FM in Akachi 96.9, Eos FM in Adakru 91.7, Nyawasi Radio Ketekrachi 89.7, Stellar Radio in Dabala is on 97.1, Diamond FM in Tamale 93.7, Bawa Radio Yendi 106.5, Radio Kita Saboba 95.7, Anyaa FM Elmina 105.7, Cape FM in Cape Coast 93.3, Global FM 105.1 in Hope. Big thank you to Volta 1 TV, Zebs FM 95.9 in Zebila, True FM 92.5 in Adeso, Lamaraya, Faith FM 89.1 in Tripoli. A big thank you to all of you. The program is live on Pan African Television and on Radio Gold. Mr. Pratt.
I must confess that when it comes to religion, I'm in a very, very clear minority on this matter. But that is not important. Because what we are actually discussing is not religion. What we are discussing is just common sense. Simple common sense. You understand? That's what we are discussing this morning. You know, everything that has happened about the National Cathedral and some other developments in our country will suggest very, very clearly that many people who voted for the current president might be regretting. They might be regretting. Because the current president is voted into office and he says, leave everything to God. The city collapses and he says, we have a wonderful God who will redeem us. That's his answer to the collapse of the city. You understand? We can't feed people in our schools. And he says, God is merciful. You understand? So for everything, his answer is God. Now, if that were the case, or if that is the case, why did anybody vote for President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo? I suspect that many people who believe in him, who follow him and so on, might be having a rethink. They may be thinking that perhaps they should have cast their votes for Bishop Pamaboko or Obofo or one of those priests. Because if it's about praying and so on, I do not think that he has the credentials that Obofo has. If it's about praying and God's mercifulness and so on, I do not think that he has the credentials of Bishop Pamaboko or any of those, you understand. And I'm really sad that things have come to this. Now, you see, we are in a situation where the city obviously has collapsed. The second from the bottom when it comes to the worst performing currency. You understand? That's what we face. We are in a situation where we can't feed children in our schools. You understand? We are in a situation where, buying petrol has become a heroic act in our country and so on. In the face of all of these difficulties, in the face of the fact that we've lost control over our natural endowment, natural resources and so on, our president thinks that one of the best things that he can do for this country is to build a national cathedral. What a catastrophe. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Sometimes I think I'm in a dream world. Because in a real world, where common sense applies, this should not be happening. But indeed, it is happening. Now, we are being told that the National Cathedral, the building of the National Cathedral has been suspended. And we are being told that it has been suspended simply because there are no funds for building the National Cathedral. In the meantime, what have we done? In the meantime, we have destroyed modern houses. Modern houses worth millions, if not billions of cedis, have been destroyed to make way for the National Cathedral, for which there are no funds. I mean, amazing. Look at the number of structures we have had to pull down, the worth of the structures we have had to pull down. So when we decided to pull down these structures, we didn't find out whether the replacement structure could be constructed or not. We didn't. There was no feasibility. We just pulled down structures. I mean, amazing. You can't believe it. That we actually took bulldozers to site, pulled down modern infrastructure, when we didn't know when we were going to get money to build the cathedral which was going to take its place. And we are being told this story. And the people who are telling us this story are actually telling us this story with straight faces. They are not weeping. They are not ashamed. They are not shy. They are looking us straight in the face and telling us this clearly cock and bull story. All of the people serving on the board of trustees, these big names, fat men of God, and so on. A president in addition, ministers, and so on, members of parliament. They are looking Ghanaians in the face and saying, we thought that we could build the National Cathedral, but we didn't find out whether we had the resources to do it or not. And we actually pulled down millions of cities, destroyed millions of cities. And finally we have come to the conclusion that we don't have the money to build the cathedral. And that the churches should bring us money to build the National Cathedral. Sena, can you believe what is happening? And I'm so baffled. Look, I travel around this country quite a lot. And I see some of these churches, existing churches, from which we are requesting funds to build the National Cathedral. They have structures already, dilapidated structures. Some of the structures are a threat to human life and so on. And there's one particular church, I don't want to mention the name. Go to Aveno just here, and see the structure in which their members worship. Now, if that church has money to contribute to the National Cathedral, wouldn't it be more sensible to save the lives of their people who are worshipping in dilapidated structures? So even the churches, if they actually decide to contribute to this so-called National Cathedral, I will be surprised. Given where some of their members who pay tithes and so on, where they worship God today. It's amazing. I mean, I can't believe it. Now, Sena, hey, you know, history sometimes is funny. Today we are being told that when Nkrumah wanted to build the Akosombo Dam, he was opposed. We are being told that when Nkrumah wanted to build the Temamoto Way, he was opposed. We are being told that even the Temahabo was resisted. And the people who are telling us this are saying that those who oppose these projects are like those who are opposing the building of the National Cathedral. But Sena, we should have asked them one question. Who are those who oppose those projects? The same people. Same people. The people who are hailing the construction of the National Cathedral are the people who describe the Temamoto Way as a prestigious project. The people who are constructing the National Cathedral are the same very, very, very people who made noises about all the projects that Nkrumah built. So today they are admitting that they were wrong and Nkrumah was right. Understand? And yet they make it look like it is their opponents who opposed Nkrumah. Unbelievable. This subject called history is a subject that everybody must study, because it helps us to understand the complexity of life. It exposes those who talk from both sides of their mouth. It separates the charlatans from people who are committed to national development. Today, that's the story we are being told. And sometimes speaking on this program is very difficult. Not just this program, for all other programs. Because here am I on a panel with my good friend Dr. Adomako Kissi, Member of Parliament. Beyond politics, a very successful medical practitioner. Beyond politics, a gentleman by all standards, and so on. And I'm sitting here on the panel with him, and I'm left with no option but to argue with him. And I have to try to make sense. I don't want to sound illogical. You know what Dr. Kissi has just said on this program? I just said it before him. I don't know whether it's a script which has been given to communicators of government. But if a script, whoever wrote that script for communicators of government must be asking himself some very serious questions. We are being told that why are you complaining about the building of a national cathedral and this suspension and so on? That it could have been worse. The president could have asked the Air Force to strike Burkina Faso. He didn't do that. So if you're hungry, be happy. Oh, what did you say? I'm ready to pause for you to repeat what you said. I said, why are you complaining? You are hungry and you are complaining. You could have been at war. We are not at war, so if you are hungry, it's okay. Suffer your hunger in happiness. Look, we are being told that it doesn't matter that since this government came into power, the price of petroleum products has doubled. So be happy. Continue to buy your gallon of petrol at more than 50 cedis, because the president has not gone to war. You understand? If your child is in the school and cannot be fed, be happy. You cannot be sad. How can you be sad when the president has not gone to war? So the only thing that presidents can do, who should annoy us, who should make us sad, who should make us complain, is going to war. So president can do anything they like and want. For as long as they don't go to war, we should be happy with them. My goodness. I don't know what to say again. And then we are told that President Putin has gone to war, so he must necessarily be a bad president. Read the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. The 1992 Constitution of Ghana makes elaborate provisions for going to war. So war is not necessarily bad. Otherwise, why does our fundamental law, the 1992 Constitution, make elaborate provisions for going to war? The national interests ought to be defended. our territorial integrity ought to be defended. The lives of Ghanaians ought to be defended. In fact, our natural resources ought to be defended. There are so many things that ought to be defended. That is why we have a standing army. That's why we have a Minister of Defense. You understand? So this thing about President not going to war, I don't know where it's coming from. Where is this thing coming from? And perhaps this is what feeds into the suggestion that, oh, we in Ghana are extremely lucky. We are so very lucky that we have a president like His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. We are so lucky. We are so lucky because in spite of the hunger that our people face, in spite of the fact that some crimes are on the increase, in spite of the fact that we've wasted tremendous resources on a phantom project like the National Cathedral and so on, we haven't gone to war. Hey, we haven't gone to war. Incredible. Incredible. Where in the MPP manifesto, was the promise made that we won't go to war, so vote for us? All these years that the MPP has been campaigning for a mandate, did they ever make not going to war a condition for securing our mandate? Today, when everything is collapsing around us, I mean, I had the privilege of listening to a representative of the Ghana Hoteliers Association. Is that how they're called? And I was amazed at the problems it confronted. I listened to Poultry Farmers Association. The catalog of problems we confront them. I listened to Ghana Medical Association. Your head will break. Problems that doctors are facing, nurses are facing, and so on. I listened to all the driver unions, Protua, and so on. You can't believe it. Importers of spare parts who were so happy that we have elected His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo as president, and therefore, as a consequence, reduce the prices of spare parts. Listen to them today. And all of these people are being told that they should be happy. After all, what the president has done is to take you to a phantom cathedral and not war. So we should be happy. Hey, Banasamumponi. What is this? Really incredible. You see, Sena, this cathedral project was useless from the very beginning. Those who believe in religion, those who accept the ethos of Christianity and so on, they came to us with quotations from the Holy Bible about how God does not dwell in houses, and about how structures built for God or in His name can only be built by people with pure hearts, and so on. I didn't do any of those things because for me those things are outside my sphere of analysis and so on. But they did that. Okay? Now, here you have a president who says that I told God to confuse Ghanaians to vote for me so that I'll become president in spite of the fact that I have no solution to the problems that confront them. And I told God that if He's able to confuse Ghanaians to vote for me, in spite of the fact that I have nothing to offer, I will build a cathedral in His praise. This is what the president said. First of all, I am deeply worried. And if I were a Christian, or or a God-believing citizen and so on, I'll be even more worried that this whole God is being reduced to a card-bearing member of the political party which opposed Nkrumah. Can you believe that? This whole God, omnipotent, omnipresence, all those things God, has been reduced to the level of a sympathizer of one political party. Not just any political party, but the political party which opposed Nkrumah. The political party which declared support for the CIA-initiated overthrow of Nkrumah, which has led us to our current situation. Now, who wants to worship that God? Certainly not me. The God who is so partisan, the God who is against CPP, the God who is against PNC, God who is against NDC, God against GCPP, God against everybody, only for Nana Akufo-Addo. What kind of God is that? What kind of a God is that? In any case, if you enter a pact with your God, because a God working against CPP is not a CPP God. The God working against NDC cannot be an NDC God. So if you enter a pact with your God, that you build a house for your God, he likes houses. He likes big houses. You understand? Houses whose cornerstone come from Israel. That's the kind of house your God likes. Why do you use my money to build that house for your God? Me, I am fundamentally opposed to the apartheid regime in Israel. For me, Israel is not a symbol of anything edifying. For me, Israel is a symbol of racist oppression of the Palestinian people. So I'm not enthused about building anything with the cornerstone from Israel. And I don't want my money to go into a project which edifies the oppression of the Palestinian people. So why use my money? Your personal pledge. Use your own money to build the cathedral for your God of Israel. Your God who supports the oppression of the Palestinian people. I'm not part of it. But then here we are. Substantial national resources have been committed to the building of this cathedral, which after all has turned out to be a phantom. A phantom, complete phantom. You know something? We don't learn. As a people, we don't learn. Sometimes our leaders display tremendous amounts of ignorance. But you see, our leaders are able to flaunt their ignorance because we appear to accept this flaunting of ignorance and stupidity. We were in this country when our energy crisis began to manifest. Okay? Now, this energy crisis, the manifestation of our energy crisis, was predicted. Sena, the current executive secretary to the president, his father, also called Asante Begitu, actually headed the National Energy Commission. And they made a prediction that this country was going to suffer serious energy crisis leading to doom so long ago. Now, what was their prediction based on? After the overthrow of the Nkrumah government, we brought in so-called experts from the West who told us that the energy we had was so much that we shouldn't develop the capacity to produce more electricity. So from the time the Nkrumah government was overthrown, way up to the Achampon time, before Achampon came to power, and started constructing the Tongu hydroelectric project, we did not invest in electricity. Our investments in electricity was so low because we have been deceived to think that we were okay. In fact, they criticized the Atomic Energy Commission when it was built and said it was an ambitious project, over ambition and so on. If we had concentrated on the development of atomic energy and so on, we probably would not have suffered doomso. But all of these historical and scientific facts were ignored. So when the problem began to manifest, what did we do? Our leaders at the time commissioned bishops and archbishops and pastors to go and pray over the Akosombo Dam. They should go pray over the Akosombo Dam so that God will find some water somewhere and pour it into the dam so we can continue to have electricity. Alright? That failed. The prayer over the Akosombo Dam did not resolve our energy problems. And doomso hit us right in the face. Today, they come to us again and say, let's build the National Cathedral so that all our problems will be solved. And we are sitting down looking at them. Some with approval. You see, it's amazing. You find scientists who have gone to school proper. You understand? You find so-called top economists and so on. And we hear them defending the National Cathedral project, and they tell us that, oh, this God is really a mysterious God. He's a wonderful God. If you build a house for him, he will solve your problems. So if you don't build a house for God, he won't solve our problems. This God, you have to build a house for him before he helps you. So poor people, where do they stand in the face of this God? Poor people who cannot build houses for God, where do they stand? This is a bribe-taking God. Serious bribe-taking God. If you don't do for me, you lie. Now lie. You will suffer till you die. This is bribe-taking God. Where is that bribe-taking God? Sena, I think it's better for me to stop here.
Let me just do a few messages on YouTube. I'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the other discussion. Seldor Glass says, good morning. This project could easily be converted into a modern hospital which will benefit the whole country. Dr. Kissi, please save your reputation. How can you compare war to Cathedral? That a candidate promises God. Spare us this, please. Vincent Kwamigawanu says, Nanado has messed up every aspect of life for Ghanaians. National monument shouldn't be his pledge to God. If it's his pledge, he should use his own money, not the nation's money. Pastor David Agbenyo says, Honorable Ablakwa is doing a great job. God bless him. God bless Pan-African. Greetings to Kwame Dancing. He says they should give accountability to the Ghanaians about the Cathedral Fund. Corrupt government. Mosena says he finds our discussions interesting, to say the least. There's Kezia Gankon, who says the price of everything is going up. It's sad. And then the 64 Kafui, that's the name. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, you're too good. The way and manner you broke things down for ordinary person is fabulous. Stay blessed always. And Nana Kwesi says, God protect, bless, and grant you long life, Mr. Pratt. There's this one. If it fails to materialize, it means the Most High, Mensa, pronounced, I don't know whether he says, he's written Mensa, pronounced results, rejected the gene. Okay, I think, okay, the Most High Mensa pronounced results. I think you have to send a message again. There's no clarity. Send it again. And please look at it carefully before you send it. Well, thank you very much for everyone joining us on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm putting the numbers together. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll be discussing 750 million. Will they save the city?
Trasacco Estates, home to Accra's most beautiful and luxurious homes, presents its newest addition, Trasacco Springs, a premium master planned community of service plots surrounded by an exhaustive list of amenities. The gated community of Tema to Accra Motorway presents you the finest opportunity to own a land that suits your preferred size, budget, and payment terms. Trasacco Springs is open to you for development. Our on-site sales executives are ready. Call on 055 659 2658. Welcome to Calm Trading and Farms Limited. We are the sole importers and distributors of FM World Rulong Plus Plus combined harvesters. We are the sole importers and distributors of FM World combined machines. If you buy from us, spare parts are readily available. Our machines can pick and harvest logged rice as well as standing rice and is 102 horsepower. FM World tractors also have 110 horsepower, which is fully hydraulic and can break hard grounds. Our rotavators is also 102 horsepower. It works perfectly in muddy areas and in lands where tractors cannot operate. World combined harvesters come with automatic gear drive, diesel power engine, 1.77 cubic grain storage tanks, 2.2 meter curtain width, 360-degree unloading pipe and sunshade, as well as 2 diesel filters. Our branches include Tamale Airport area, Accra Ritz Junction. Kindly call us on 0278 223 811 or 0550 108 899. as well as 020-1600-727. Don't buy fake, buy original. Buy from us now. Come Trading and Farms Limited, your best importers and suppliers of FM World Rulong Plus Plus combined harvesters.
Welcome back from that break. It's the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, live on Pan-African TV. My name is Sena Nombo, and I still have in the studio Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. Sitting close to him, Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, Member of Parliament for North Tongu, and his colleague is also in the house today, Dr. Dickson Adomako Kissi, MP for Anyaa, Sowutuom. So I have 2 members of Parliament duly represented, and then lawyer Beatrice Annan is sitting very close to me. We are talking. Let's move on to the matter. But before we do that, okay. So let's move on to the matter of the CD, the 750 million, and the impact it's having on the CD. Questions about how much we actually have. We understand we are using 713 million. The Deputy Finance Minister said 37 million have been set aside for the payment of debts, and they are relying on 713. Question is, would it be our salvation? I'll start from the members of Parliament because they approved that Afrexim loan. But I have an issue of time. I can do only 10 minutes each on that issue. Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa first. Yeah. So I don't know if we can mix the two.
Not discussing.
Yeah, so let's mix the two because I really would like us to. Yeah. So let's put it together. If you can do it within 10 minutes. That and the Russian-Ukrainian.
Certainly a difficult ask, but we have to, under the constraints. Let's be honest, Sena. $750 million. So what? How can there be a salvation, really? Let's be brutally frank. We have known for many, many decades that what this economy needs is structural reform. It's not about pumping dollars. We've known that. indeed, the current president, when he was campaigning, he said that he is coming to transform the structure of the economy. He didn't promise us $750 million that he will go for more loans and saddle us with more debts. So as you have observed, and those who have been looking at the numbers, we only got some 2 days of false stability when the $750 million hit the Bank of Ghana account. Indeed, let me be clear, it was $737 million, as you can expect of this Akufo-Addo government, vanished in transit. They are telling us now that they created an escrow account for debt servicing. We haven't seen any evidence to that effect. I have here what we approved in Parliament. We asked for a breakdown, 11 items. Ofanko in Sawam Road, $200 million. Ejisu Konongo Road, $75 million. Completion in Sawam Apejua Road, $10 million, and on and on and on. Nowhere here did we approve $37 million for a so-called debt servicing escrow account. So another illegality. Anytime the Akufo-Addo government, they see money, some must be hived off. Immediately a scheme must be invented to hive some away for all kinds of shenanigans. If you knew that there ought to be a debt servicing escrow, why didn't you bring it to Parliament, let it be added to the list, to the breakdown, and we know that this is what we are approving? Why do they keep treating Parliament and the Ghanaian people with such utter contempt? So we all know what is going on. We have seen money. Let's quickly see what kind of chobonomics we can, as usual, engage in. But the substantive point I'm making, really, Sena, is that the structure of this economy. Kwame Nkrumah put us on a path since he became head of government business. And we all know the levels of transformation in leaps and bounds that we saw. Since 24 February 1966, and I don't know what it is with 24 February, the second topic you want us to discuss, unfortunately, no time. That's the same day the Russia-Ukraine war began. But since that time, we have been derailed. It was not until the NDC got power that you saw. And to be fair, I'm talking about the second NDC, because the NDC initially was engaged in a lot of so-called diversification and selling of state assets. But at some point, to be fair to the history, there was a U-turn. And so you saw that under President Mahama, there was a conscious effort to begin a re-industrialization effort. I'm not talking about a 1D, 1F initiative that just goes to erect billboards. They come to existing companies and say that, what do you need? You need a fence wall. Can we paint here? And then, they erect a billboard. That's not the kind of. We saw what President Mahama did. That Ghana gas project alone is saving us in excess of $300 million in foreign exchange. That's the kind of, when we talk about structural reforms, that's what we are talking about. The Buipe share factory he established to transform shea butter, convert it into finished products. You saw the statement the Russian embassy put out and how much we spend on importation of things, basic things that we can produce here, but $2.7 billion every year. So if you look at our debt situation, you look at because we sit in Parliament and we look at the books. Cocoa Board alone has a debt of $12.3 billion. Cocoa Board alone. Our latest numbers, if you look at what we spend on fuel importation every month, is $450 million. So the amount of money we need to stabilize this economy is not $750 million. And really, it's not about money. It's about visionary leadership. What is happening to the Ghanaian economy now? People have lost confidence in this economy. They've lost confidence. So you see that now, after the initial drop, it's back. Yesterday when I checked, it's hit 10 again. And it's still declining. I was at some cocktail reception with some ambassadors, and I was shocked the number of companies that are folding up. Many companies are folding up. They are leaving. So there is total loss of confidence. People are saying that the economic management team, you talk to industry people, they say the economic management team must be booted out. Clearly, Dr. Bawumia has shown that IT is his passion. He should just be asked to assist Oslo Owusu. They should focus on that. And you bring a new credible team. The finance minister, all industry players have lost confidence in him. What is he still doing there? So what we need now is visionary leadership, a return to the Nkrumah blueprint, real industrialization, adding value, creating jobs. Look, has it occurred to you, Sena, that we are complaining about this 10? The real value of this currency. Let's not forget that President Kufuor knocked off 4 zeros. If those 4 zeros had not been knocked out, just imagine where we would have been and how much, you know, of CD you must have in sacks to probably just buy water. You know, so it tells you that there is a fundamental problem with leadership. We don't have visionary leadership. The kind of leadership that we saw. You look at President Mahame's far-reaching interventions. Look at his economic indicators. The longest period of single-digit inflation, the highest GDP growth rate ever, excess of 14%. We have lost all of that to those who promised that they would transform this economy in 18 months. That's what President Akufo-Addo told us, that all he needs is 18 months. So, Sena, our salvation cannot lie in $750 million or the cocoa syndication they are waiting for, which the last time we tracked is not doing well at all. Investors are shunning Ghana. They are all shunning Ghana. And our case now, as you know, is really a basket case. We continue to be declared a country that is bankrupt by all the rating agencies. From Standard & Poor's to Fitch to Moody's, we've been downgraded. Now our banks are also being downgraded. We're in a precarious situation. That's where we find ourselves now. It's not about just throwing money at problems. We need to put together a team of thinkers, and we need a national approach, probably similar to what happened in Senchi, where you call everybody. The last time I met the distinguished Kwame Pienim, and he was suggesting that, look, this is a time for all sides to come together. And look, we celebrate Kwame Nkrumah. We give him all the credit. But you see, one of the things that you must give Kwame Nkrumah, apart from the fact that he himself was very visionary, his ability to put the best brains together from all over the world. The Russians were here. He had the Eastern Europeans. Dr. Dubois and all these people, he brought them together, best brains, and thought through the challenges of that era and found the best solutions. That is what we need now.
Okay.
Not this inward-looking approach where you know, a bunch of clueless people don't want to open up, are impervious to advice, and they think that throwing more money, accumulating more loans, which they benefit from anyway. Remember that is family business. The more loans they bring in, the more the family benefits from transaction advisor fees and all of that.
Okay.
That point has been well established.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate I don't have time, but we must be careful about the current geopolitical climate. Things are going to really get worse, and we have to prepare. Russia's latest action will have far-reaching implications. I think that the time has come for the international community to appeal to Russia and Ukraine to stop the war. Both sides must stop it. You know, the focus has been on just the Russians, but let's be honest, you have a lot of Western allies who are, what we have is a low-intensity world war, really, you know, supporting with ammunitions and all of that. It will not help us. There will be grave consequences for the world. And I will just appeal, because clearly Russia is ratcheting up its latest actions. And remember, winter is approaching. I don't see how France, Germany, and others are going to survive. And look, things are going to get really, really bad. And fortunately, the AU has been well positioned. It seems that the Russians are giving some audience to the AU. This is the time that I miss somebody like Kwame Nkrumah, who will take control, you know, and offer international solution. That's where we had the non-aligned movement during the Cold War. He came up with that idea, and he helped, you know, in being a peace broker. That is what we are lacking now. Unfortunately, Guterres has not been as dynamic as we would have wished, and the UN appears quite moribund and quite weak in the face of the challenges. But this is a time for international leaders to emerge and seek peace, seek truce. If not, with the winter approaching, you can imagine where gas prices will go to. And we have a government already that is looking for so many things to blame. Everybody else but themselves. They will see this as an opportunity, and things will just get out of control.
Thank you. Just that your colleague, Honorable Kobna Minta Kando, says I should ask you what is jobonomics. Anyway, but Honorable,
it's where $37 million disappear.
Yeah, 750 million is not much to curtail the issues of this economy. So I wouldn't belabor that point. This was one of the last outstanding agreements we had whilst we're exiting the second session, and rightly so. They are for very critical roads in this country, which will ease our transportation of goods and services either into the major cities or from our port to the outskirts. So I'm happy it's in. The only plus I can see is the fact that some people in the investment environment, when they see that other people are agreeing to give you support, they are more likely to come on board. So those are some of the pluses we might get. Just as we also are expecting IMF in town to further strengthen the negotiations, that also signals other investors to have hope that there's something coming up. So in economic terms, I see this as more of a signaling, and which will show up our numbers a bit better. So that's all I'll say on that. With regards to Russia, Ukraine, and Germany's issues, in fact, energy is a huge thing, and gas production, facilitating it, and all of this. That's why this war is very complicated. You know, in the sense that the needs or the various countries are so interconnected. In one breath, Germany needs Russia. In another breath, it also needs Ukraine. So it's very difficult for them to take sides. And I think the Indian strategy is quite interesting too, because they are a huge beneficiary of Russian industry. But in all of this, I'm for them ending this war. And it just is difficult. I understand the history the fact that the Americans took part of Russia away and all of that. I mean, but that's in the past. People are suffering for sins of their parents. Let me put it that way, and it's very painful. The lives that are being lost, innocent lives, and even the military folks who are dying. And I just hope that we pray that this thing ends. If it moves into the territory of all-out engagement, where then they start destroying, very important things like, their energy sector, we're going to have a big problem worldwide. And once Germany gets no gas supplies, and then it trickles down to everything they also produce. You can imagine when Ghana will be getting certain things that we depend on Germany for, and it'll be an escalating thing. So this thing has to be put to an end. This one there, what happens in Russia doesn't stay in Russia. It comes to Ghana too, and what happens in Germany doesn't stay in Germany. It comes to Ghana. So the takeaway point, I'm happy to hear my own member of parliament, friend Okudzeto, admitting that the geopolitical terrain has changed, and that we should, as it is, brace ourselves for worsening of issues if this thing should continue. I'm very happy and touched by that, because for a longest time, a lot of people were just claiming that it was us saying that, this Russia-Ukraine thing is a havoc to everything that is good. So I'm happy about that, and I appreciate him for at least coming to this point, though delayed, but at least I'm happy we are there now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Missed you.
Thank you. Now, in case you just joined us, this is theguardian.com. The Russian major Gazprom extended the shutdown of gas flows to its Nord Stream 1 pipeline to Germany on Friday evening, providing no time frame for a reopening. The move came hours after G7 countries agreed to impose price cap on Russian oil in an attempt to stem the flow of funds to Vladimir Putin's regime. Now, this is Nord Stream 1 is the single biggest pipeline for gas from Russia to Europe, and has the capacity to deliver 55 billion cubic meters of gas a year. Continued supplies through the pipeline are seen to be as crucial to prevent a deepening of the energy crisis. So now we are looking at an energy crisis in Europe. Beatrice.
Okay, so contrary to what Dr. Kissi has said, that the 750 million that part was actually received, the rest in escrow account will send the right signals to the market. I'm sorry to tell him and all other viewers that it will not send any signal. The reason is that that amount was budgeted to be borrowed in the 2022 budget. So it's already part of government's plan if you read the 2022 budget. And right after reading that budget, the market responded and said that you guys don't know what you're doing. Fitch, S&P, Moody's downgraded us. We left the Eurobond market, and practically our economy came into a junk status, second worst in the world and worst in Africa. So that receipt was already part of what you were expecting. And I would say that we are headed in an economic, crisis, not only because of the structural issues we have with our economy, but because the MPP is clueless about everything that is happening. I want to believe that genuinely Dr. Bawumia has no understanding about how this economy operated, perhaps because he was only in the monetary space and did not have any ball to play in the fiscal space. And so having come into contact with the economy, and of course having met a making policy decisions where there are competing interests. So those $750 million would just be like pouring a sachet of water into an ocean. it won't change anything. Because she received 2 billion from the World Bank and nothing changed. You received in excess of 600 million and 2 billion from the IMF, 600 million from the World Bank, 850 euros from the European Union. Nothing changed. So why is government creating the PR that some 750 million will stabilize the city? The city will not stabilize because the structural information that we need, which you promised, have now been evidenced by just billboards. And billboards under agenda 1D1F can't stabilize the city. And I also want to, in discussing the Russia-Ukraine and then the gas supply to Germany, want to caution the government that at least there are signals. The signals are there. The government should not be sleeping, and members of the economic management team should not sleep. And then when our economy is finally declared as a collapsed economy, they will now blame it on Russia's decision to cut supply to Germany. Because a leader's response to crisis is what distinguishes that leader from somebody who is just occupying a position and not a leader. And so what measures are we putting in place, especially in the energy sector? One of them is for government to have enough to store for the citizens. So when you have BOST, which was created by the NDC government to help stabilize the energy situation, so that when you have some Russia-Ukraine issue like this, the citizens will be pushing a bit, and you form a cartel, and you rent the BOST spaces to private individuals and get kickbacks behind, at the detriment of every citizen. When Russia makes this decision, do not extend or globalize your failure and rope in Russia, Ukraine. And so I want to caution them, because if you take the budget, if you read some of the Fitch reports, and if you do the economic analysis, it's as though the NPP government is just waiting for the economy to crash, because they know that they are getting out of power, so that come 2025, they will practically hand over no economy to the NDC, because they are practically not doing anything. During the NDC time, when we were faced with some of these external shocks, you saw the Century Consensus. At least there was a national debate generated on what can be done, because we held the view that no one person is a repository of knowledge. And there are some economic decisions that if you need to implement, you need to have the buy-in of everyone. And so we generated that national discourse. Even when we were going with to the IMF, we went with something in hand. Today, as we speak, you have nothing. We don't know what the policies of government are, except to say that the Auditor General's report has revealed that you spent almost, or between 2017 till now, you've wasted through corruption and financial irregularity almost 46 billion cedis. And then you are going to the IMF expecting to get 28 billion, which is just $3 billion. And so it appears the center cannot hold. This will not send any signal to the right market, the market people who have the real data, the IMF who have the real data, who will not condone your creative accounting of below the line expenditure and above the line expenditure, will not take you serious. And whether you are NPP or NDC, the economic mess we find ourselves in, the CD, the fuel, today cement in some parts of Ghana is selling at 80 cedis from 27 cedis in 2016. We need to sit up, whether you are NDC, and please, the president should stop partying, enjoying and sleeping, because we are headed in a ditch.
Thank you. Before I come to Mr. Pratt, this one. Good morning, Senator. Upon assumption of office, President Akufo-Addo promised to protect the public purse. Is the national cathedral a priority? Unfortunately, the president said it's his priority of priorities. When our economy is sunken and in a junk state, is cathedral a priority? In fact, President Akufo-Addo has failed. Nothing is working. Things fall apart. How lucky are we to have President Akufo-Addo as president, who have left us with great legacies like PDS, cash for seats, inflation, over 30% unemployment, all-time high corruption is institutional. That's coming from Habib in Italy. Mr. Pratt.
is the fact that we are borrowing to pay loans. That's the real calamity. All the stories about this 750 million and so on. The one that strikes me is the fact that we are actually borrowing to pay loans. Is that not incredible? I mean, I'm so shocked. After what has happened within the last 5.5 years, we are still at a point where we are borrowing to increase the debt stock. We are borrowing not to enhance production. We are borrowing not to restructure the national economy. We are borrowing basically to pay loans and to engage in a futile attempt to shore up the value of the city. Incredible. I mean, if this all governance is about, who cannot become president? No wonder all kinds of strange people, very strange people, are dreaming about becoming presidents. People who can barely marshal enough energy even to open their mouth to speak. They want to be presidents. It is because of this. I mean, governance has become so cheap, so easy. You borrow and then you use it to pay loans. And then you pretend to be shoring up the city. Look, the value of the city appreciated slightly. The last time I checked, the city was exchanging for about 9.5, to a dollar. That was sometime around Thursday, Why? This morning I checked, it's back to 10 cedis to a dollar. So this gimmick has collapsed already. There's no value. This gimmick has collapsed already. The city has started breaking jail. So let's look. I fully agree with my friend and brother Sami Okudzeto that to resolve the current crisis, we need to look at a fundamental restructuring of the national economy. What is happening is the crisis of capitalism finding expression. Capitalism is in crisis. The neoliberal economic order is collapsing. That is why the city is collapsing. That is why Western Europe is gone berserk. That is why the US economy is in tailspin and so on. It is not a Ghanaian problem. This is a problem of the collapse of the world economic order. That order we tried to build after the Second World War. That whole order is collapsing. Neoliberalism is collapsing. Capitalism has no future. And that is why we have to sit back and begin to think and engage in a fundamental restructuring of the national economy, which makes Ghanaians owners of their own resources and beneficiaries of the exploitation of their own resources. That's the only way forward. There's no other way. All this borrowing and running around to IMF and so on, their lazy options will bring no results, and we should forget it. Now, talking about the problem in Ukraine. So, Masa, do you know, as of now, the Russian establishment says that it is not at war. The Russians don't think that they are at war. They have only started a special operation in Ukraine. Look at the consequences. So when the real war begins, if they are compelled to start the real war, especially if the Western countries, the NATO countries, are foolish enough to give the Ukrainians long-range weapons and so on, and the real war starts, what will be the consequence? And yesterday, they are talking about giving, the US is talking about giving the Ukrainians weapons to the range of 300 kilometers and more. That's madness. Absolute madness. Why? Nobody is going to profit from this crisis. And in fact, The Russians have demonstrated very clearly that they have a bigger capacity to cope with crisis than the West, than the NATO countries. Today, as we speak, the Russian currency is one of the strongest in the world. Look at the euro. Now the dollar is even stronger than the euro. They should begin to learn common sense. But it appears that their leaders are not different from the kinds of leaders we have in this part of the world. They are all the same. They are not thinking. They've stopped thinking long time ago. Just follow America, follow Biden. And this follow is destroying them. You know, sometimes when you listen to Western leaders, you begin to wonder whether you should cry or laugh. Yesterday, I heard these NATO leaders one after the other saying that, oh, Russia is weaponizing energy. Why should they not weaponize energy when we are weaponizing everything? Russia has suffered the imposition of sanctions unprecedented in world history. Why? Is that not weaponizing trade? Is that not weaponizing everything? So you are busy weaponizing. You are busy imposing sanctions on them. And then you say they should not weaponize energy. The Russians are not fools. The Russians have a capacity to think and to protect their interest. And they have a right to protect their interest. You don't weaponize everything against them and expect them to sit down and fold their arms and sing Hallelujah chorus. It's not happening. It will not happen. Then yesterday, they took the most foolish decision. G7 met and said, we are capping the price of energy supplies. There are two people involved in any transaction. So you cap it. You cap it and say, okay, we are not selling to you because we are capping. Who suffers? And unfortunately for them, winter is just around the corner. There are many countries in Europe whose citizens will die from cold if they continue to exacerbate the energy crisis. They should stop thinking about establishing a hegemony in the world and start thinking about how to protect their citizens from cold. Listen, these Western leaders, they are not even looking after the interests of their own people. They're just sacrificing their own people for some unrealizable ambition. Look, the recalibration of the world has begun. And nothing is going to stop the recalibration of the world. The days when the United States was the master of all that it surveys are over. And the earlier they realize that, the better. My worry is about governments like ours, you know, who see this an excuse for their incompetence. They're telling everybody, oh, the city has collapsed because of Russia-Ukrainian war. When they can't feed their people, oh, Russian-Ukrainian war. When petrol prices go up, Russian-Ukrainian war. The Russians have said to us, in fact, they've said to many, all of us in the world, that they are ready to sell to us at 25% rebated price. Why don't we go for it? The South Africans have gone for it. The Indians have gone for it. China is buying enormous amounts of oil from Russia in order to resolve their own problems. And we are sitting here afraid of the United States of America, afraid of a waning power like Britain. Britain has lost its power. Its power waned a long time ago. Britain is no longer the ruler of the waves. That is history. So let's sit up. Let's think about the interests of our own people. Let's think about how to fundamentally restructure our economy. Let's think about how to feed school children in our country, and so on. And if we did that, it would be in our best interest, rather than toiling along all the time. Follow, toiling along. Follow, toiling along. It's not taking us anywhere. So the time has come for our leaders to wake up. There's a new reality in the world. Look, at the raft of sanctions which have been imposed on Russia, it's not working. What does that mean? That power to threaten and so on has been taken away. The Russians have smashed that power to threaten and so on. Why? The Western countries were determined to topple Bashar Assad of Syria. Russia said, "You can't do that. You are joking." They have failed in that bid. You understand? So we are no longer in a unipolar world. We are actually in a multipolar world. Huh? And the earlier our policymakers realize that, the better it will be for us. Who has said that war is good? You think that the Russians are happy? They are losing soldiers. Okay? You think they are happy? They are not happy about war. They've been compelled to defend their national interest. That's why they are where they are. You understand? And for goodness sake, I cannot believe that Zelensky is what he is. Zelensky, the West was telling him to go ahead. They were encouraging him and so on. When the Russians moved their tanks into Ukraine, they told him to run away. Have you forgotten? They called and said, "If you want asylum, we'll give you asylum." And he's still there playing their game. They told him to run away. Say, "Run away, they're coming." What is Zelensky up to? All Zelensky has to do to end this war is to make the declaration that Ukraine will be neutral in the conflict between NATO and Russia. That's all. War ended. Very simple formula. Why? Do you know how many Ukrainian soldiers are dying a day? Between 150 and 200 Ukrainian soldiers are dying every day. If this war should continue for another 6 months, would Ukraine have an army? At the rate of death, the current rate of death, can Ukraine have an army? The whole country is being destroyed. The Ukrainian people today must wake up to the reality that Zelensky and his allies in the West are destroying Ukraine, and they need to stop Zelensky from his madness. That's the way to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I go, just a few things. One, this is from Angelo Kojoko. Sena, very preoccupied today morning. A friend, Dr. Paul Dagby in Akachi, but I have to make a little time to listen to wisdom. Alhaji and Alhaji, the truth be told, Ekufuado and Bawumia knew nothing about governance. Criticized citizens of Ghana are now paying for their incompetence. If you realize, I managed to drag 2 of my panel members here, even though they said they were going to a funeral. So they had to come here. So I acknowledge that.
Actually, 3.
Okay, 3. Yes, I never knew you were going. Yeah. Well, so let's extend. Okay, I'll come to you. Let's extend our condolences to the family of Mr. Isaac Kobena and Cancer Deborah. He was popularly known as Cambodia. Now he's the junior brother, I believe, of Mr. Julius Deborah, who is former chief of staff. The funeral, I'm sure a lot of things have gone already, is ongoing currently. So our condolences to the family on the loss of Mr. Isaac Kobena and Cancer Deborah, especially to Mr. Julius Deborah. And also a happy birthday to you, Bill Bogolo, and to Awana in Sugakope. Beatrice. Okay.
And then let's add Sheila Batel's birthday. So
that's today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay, happy birthday to the member of parliament.
No scandals involved for us.
are you?
We haven't talked about
Well, from Chobonomics to follow. We are done for today. Big thank you to Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jnr, who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And of course, big thank you to Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa for joining us today. And also to Honorable Dr. Adomako Kissi, Member of Parliament for Anyaa Sowutuom, and closer to me, Lawyer Beatrice Annan. Thank you all for making time. Stay with Pan-African TV. Don't forget this show was live on Pan-African TV and also live on Radio Gold. A big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM. A big thank you to several affiliates who tuned in to us this morning. We are always grateful to you. We are back same time next week with another edition of the show. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a fruitful week and take care.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom.